I lived in Nome, Alaska for 5 years. Not visited, lived. A small cabin just outside the town's edge, about 30 minutes northwest, perched on frost-heaved ground where the tundra meets the frozen sea. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't cinematic. It was isolation in the truest form. But that's what I wanted. I worked in environmental geology, tracking glacial movement, sea ice cracks, meltwater shifts. Nome was one of the last places where the land still moved in slow, ancient ways, and I wanted to study it up close. I didn't expect the land to study me back. It was February 2018, the kind of month where the cold isn't just around you, it's inside you. Diesel engines froze. Coffee turned to slush indoors. Wolves kept quiet. And the sea? The Bering Sea had become a massive slab of fractured silence. Nothing but wind and shifting light. It stretched out like glass dusted in snow, and at night, it groaned. The sound of pressure ridges forming, ice plates slamming against one another, like the earth grinding its teeth in its sleep. I was used to it. Until the night the ice started knocking. It was February 11th. I remember the date because it was the first time in months the wind had stopped completely. No howling through the cracks, no frost pelting the windows, just silence. Around 3:12 a.m. I woke up. No reason. Just that strange stillness that nudges you from sleep like a whisper. Then from beneath the floorboards I heard it. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. The sound of something intentional. I froze in my cot. My first thought was ground shift. Sometimes the ice beneath the cabin settles. But this wasn't groaning. This wasn't creaking. It was knocking. From underneath. I got up, didn't turn on a light, just sat by the stove listening. 10 minutes passed. Then it came again. 3 knocks, louder this time. Followed by something worse. A breath. Drawn out and shallow, like something exhaling through its teeth. And then, silence. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I stepped outside into a pale gray world. The temperature was 38 degrees hike. The ice shimmered under the morning sky like cold steel. I looked around for tracks. Nothing. No animals, no signs of wind, not even my own prints, already crusted over by the frost. But near one of the stilts that propped up my cabin, something caught my eye. A patch of charred ice. It looked burned but not melted, and above it, scratched into the wooden siding, were 3 long claw marks, each over a foot long. Not deep but deliberate, like a warning or a message. I grabbed my camera and snapped a photo. When I touched the wall, the frost around the claw marks was warm. That was the moment I stopped pretending this was weather. Around noon, I snowshoed into town to report it to the ranger station. They brushed it off, said it was methane gas cracks or seismic shifts. One of the younger rangers joked, "You've met the Kalupalik. It likes knocking first." I asked what that was. He said it was an old Inuit myth, a creature that lives beneath the ice, tapping from below to lure victims closer. Said to wear children's skin like coats. Said to breathe warmth in the cold. I didn't laugh. Because when I returned home that night, the knocking didn't wait. It started the moment I stepped through the door. Not underneath this time. On the wall. Then another knock and from the ceiling. Then something moved past the window. I ran to it, flashlight in hand. Outside, nothing. But on the glass was a handprint. Not large, not human. 4 fingers clawed. The frost around it melted into droplets and refroze seconds later. I barricaded the door with a steel rod, sat with my back to the wall, flare gun in hand, eyes fixed on every shadow that twitched. At 4:23 a.m. it stopped. Suddenly, like it had never happened. The next morning I found something that's never left me. On the porch I pushed out in a perfect circle were handprints in the frost. Dozens of them. Small, child-sized. Pressed into the ice. Not like someone had walked across it, but like something had crawled across the wood, dragging heat as it went. And in the middle of the circle was a hole, carved clean into the ice like it had been bored from underneath. I dropped a glow stick inside. It kept falling. No splash, no sound, just black. I left Nome 3 days later. Paid a bush pilot in cash to fly me to Anchorage. Left my gear, my samples, even my laptop behind. Told the department I was done with field work. They didn't ask questions. But I've never been able to sleep through February again. Because every year at 3:12 a.m. I still wake up. And sometimes, I still hear it. 3 knocks. I worked in search and rescue out of Fairbanks for nearly a decade. We handled everything. Hikers gone missing, bush pilots downed in the woods, remote medical evac. But there's one mission I still think about almost every week. We called it the Echo Ridge Incident. It was 2016, early winter. We got a distress signal from a satellite beacon pinging from deep inside Denali National Park, way off any known trail. The beacon was registered to a solo backpacker named Andrea Pollard, 27, visiting from Oregon. She had filed an itinerary for a 6-day circuit. She was on day 4 when the beacon activated. That meant she wasn't playing around. You don't hit that button unless you think you're going to die. We sent out a 2-man snowmobile team. I was lead. My partner Dave had been with SAR for 12 years. Tough guy, not the type to get spooked. We reached the coordinates by sundown. Nothing but white silence and sub-zero wind. No smoke, no movement, no sound. Then Dave found something. A small fire pit burned out. Next to it, Andrea's gear was stacked neatly, but her sleeping bag was zipped up and empty. No footprints leading away. No drag marks, no blood. Just one set of boot prints circling the fire. Over and over. Dozens of loops, as if she had walked in a circle for hours. We started calling her name. No answer. Then Dave waved me over. He'd found something else. On the bark of a nearby tree, scratched deep into the wood, was the word. Listen. Below it, a symbol, looked like an ear almost, or a spiral. We reported it over radio. Command said daylight was dropping, told us to pull back and set camp. We weren't happy about it, but they were right. We stayed right there. We shouldn't have. That night, the temperature dropped below 20. We stayed in separate tents close together. I remember reading by headlamp when I heard a sound, faint, coming from the tree line. It was Andrea's voice. Help me. But it didn't sound desperate. It sounded calm, flat, like someone reading a line from a script. I unzipped the tent, stepped out, nothing but cold and trees. Then I heard it again. Closer. Same voice, same tone. Help me, I'm right here. Dave poked his head out of his tent, said, You hear that? I nodded. We waited. Then he new voice, same tone. Please, listen. But this time it came from behind us. We stood back to back, light sweeping the trees. Nothing. Then Dave looked down and said, Jesus. There, right between our tents, was a trail of bare footprints. Tiny, human, fresh, leading in a circle. We stayed up the rest of the night with our rifles out. At one point, the wind stopped. I don't mean it died down. I mean it stopped. Like someone had pressed mute on the world. In that dead silence, we heard it again. Voices, but dozens of them, layered, whispering from every direction, saying the same word. Listen. Over and over. Some were right beside us. But when we turned, nothing. At dawn, we packed everything in under 10 minutes, abandoned some gear, took only what we needed. As we left, Dave looked back once. I still remember his face. He went pale and said, There's someone standing on the ridge. I looked. Sure enough, a figure, alone, watching from the top of a snowbank maybe 60 yards back. We raised our binoculars. No features. Just a pale face, mouth open, and what looked like a hand pressed to its ear. Command pulled us out by chopper a few hours later. We filed the report. Official explanation? Delirium from extreme conditions. They never found Andrea. But 2 months later, another team responded to a ping just 3 miles from Echo Ridge. They found a camera, half buried in the snow. The last photo was taken at night, black and white, grainy. But you could see her, Andrea, standing between 2 trees, staring directly at the camera. Behind her, a second figure, barefoot, smiling, its hand pressed to its ear. They never found a body. But sometimes SAR teams say they still hear her voice when storms roll in near Echo Ridge. Always the same thing. Please, just listen. In 2021, I took a winter job with a private research group conducting environmental surveys outside Kotzebue, Alaska, a small town on the northwest coast, not far from the Arctic Circle. It wasn't a glamorous assignment. We were mapping permafrost shifts due to climate change, data collection, temperature readings, drone footage. Long hours, below zero gear, and solitude that gnawed at your thoughts. They assigned me to Station 7, the most remote outpost of the entire grid, about 19 miles from the nearest settlement. It was a prefab container cabin dropped by helicopter onto a low ridge surrounded by forest on one side and open tundra on the other. There was no Wi-Fi, no cell service, no vehicle access. Just a shortwave radio and 2 weeks' worth of silence. Or so I thought. It was on my 4th night that I first noticed something strange. I had just finished logging core sample data when I looked out the cabin window and saw movement near the tree line. At first I thought it was just drifting snow, but then I realized it was standing upright. A figure, barely visible still, too far to make out features. It was just watching. I blinked, looked again. Gone. Just trees. I convinced myself it was a shadow, a trick of the light. The wind plays games in that part of the world. It sculpts fear out of silence. But the next evening, just after sundown, I saw it again. Closer. Same place, still, facing the cabin. I radioed base. They said no one was scheduled to be near me for another 5 days. I asked if any of the local rangers were in the area. They said no. I didn't sleep well that night. By the next evening, I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. But as the sun dipped and the air turned steel gray, I looked out the window again. And it was right at the edge of the tree line. Still, tall, unmoving, almost leaning forward. I opened the cabin door and stepped outside with the spotlight. The second the beam hit the trees, it was gone. Not ran. Not ducked. Gone. That night, I blocked the door with my field case and kept the lights on. But at exactly 2:17 a.m., the power flickered. Then the radio crackled to life. A voice, distorted, but unmistakable. My own voice. Repeating the last thing I had said before going off air hours earlier. Station 7 requesting confirmation, over. Then again. Station 7 requesting confirmation, over. It looped 3 times. Then silence. I turned off the radio. Listened. From outside, I heard footsteps on snow. Crisp, measured, deliberate. They circled the cabin once, then stopped beneath the window. I didn't look. I just stood there, frozen, as something breathed against the glass, long and slow, and then 3 words spoken in a low, gravelly whisper. Do you see it? When I finally looked, there was nothing. No figure, no prints. But the breath on the glass left a perfect ring of fog, with a single fingerprint smeared inside it. In the morning, I hiked 4 miles in sub-zero conditions to the nearest backup cabin and refused to go back. The company sent a replacement. He lasted 1 night. Said he woke up to find someone standing inside the room, facing the window with their head tilted upward, as if watching something through the ceiling. He quit the next day. Locals later told me about an old story, never published, just passed around. They say there's something in those forests, something that lives in the dusk. It doesn't come for food or warmth. It comes to be seen, to be noticed. And once you do, it never forgets. If you made it this far, thank you for spending your night with us. If these stories gave you chills, there's plenty more waiting. Don't forget to subscribe to Night Fear Stories for new terrifying tales every single night. Sleep well, if you can.